Right now, as you're listening to this, there's a 5-year-old child sitting in a classroom somewhere in America, throwing a chair at their teacher. There's a teenager who can't read a simple sentence, even though they're about to graduate high school. There's a teacher walking out of their classroom for the last time, not because they want to, but because they simply can't take it anymore. This isn't some dystopian nightmare. This is the reality of American public schools today. And what I'm about to tell you will shock you to your core. Because the truth about what's happening in our schools isn't just bad, it's catastrophic. And the people in charge don't want you to know just how bad it really is. Today I'm going to expose the shocking secrets behind America's failing public school system. Secrets that will make you question everything you thought you knew about education in this country. Secrets that reveal a crisis so deep, so widespread, that it threatens the very future of our children. Let me start with a number that should terrify every parent in America. Only 56% of fourth graders in this country can do math at their grade level. Think about that for a moment. Nearly half of our 10-year-olds are already falling behind in basic mathematics. But here's what's even more terrifying. That number used to be 69% just 5 years ago. We're not talking about a small decline. We're talking about a complete academic collapse happening right before our eyes. And it gets worse. Only 65% of third graders can read at their grade level, down from 72% in 2019. These are 8 and 9-year-olds who can't read simple sentences. How are they supposed to learn anything else? But the most shocking statistic of all? According to Harvard researchers, the average American student is less than halfway to a full academic recovery from the pandemic. Less than halfway. That means our children are so far behind that even if everything went perfectly from now on, most of them would never catch up to where they should be. Here's what teachers are seeing in their classrooms every single day. Students who can't focus on a 3-minute video. Teenagers who can't write a complete sentence. Children who have lost the ability to read for more than a few minutes at a time. One English teacher told researchers, focus and endurance for any sort of task, especially reading, has been really hard for a lot of teenagers. This isn't just about test scores. This is about an entire generation of children whose minds have been damaged by a system that has failed them completely. And the people running this system? They're more concerned with covering up the problem than fixing it. But the academic crisis is just the beginning. What's happening in our schools goes far beyond children who can't read or do math. We're dealing with a behavioral crisis that would have been unimaginable just a few years ago. Picture this: 4 and 5-year-olds, children who should be learning their ABCs, are instead throwing chairs, biting their teachers, and hitting other children. This isn't happening in 1 or 2 schools. This is happening across the country, in kindergarten classrooms everywhere. Tommy Sheridan, who works with early childhood education programs, told the New York Times, "We are talking 4 and 5-year-olds who are throwing chairs, biting, hitting. These are babies, children who haven't even lost their first tooth yet, and they're already so damaged by what they've experienced that they can't function in a normal classroom." The violence doesn't stop there. In just one school year, public schools recorded 857,500 violent incidents. That's nearly 1 million acts of violence in our schools. And that's just what gets reported. How many more incidents happen every day that never make it into any official record? 7% of high school students, that's more than 1 in every 14 kids, have been threatened or injured with a weapon on school property, guns, knives, clubs, in places where children are supposed to feel safe and learn. But here's what the administrators don't want you to know. This crisis isn't random. It's not just kids being kids. It's the direct result of a system that has completely broken down, a system that has abandoned its most basic responsibility, keeping children safe and helping them learn. Now let me tell you about the people who are supposed to be teaching our children. Or rather, let me tell you about how many of them are no longer there. Right now, today, there are 406,964 teaching positions in America that are either completely empty or filled by people who aren't qualified to teach. Let me say that again. More than 400,000 classrooms either have no teacher at all or have someone who isn't properly trained to teach children. That's 1 out of every 8 teaching positions in the entire country. 1 out of 8. Imagine if 1 out of every 8 doctors wasn't qualified to practice medicine. Imagine if 1 out of every 8 pilots wasn't qualified to fly a plane. That's exactly what's happening in our schools right now. 365,044 teachers currently working in American classrooms are not fully certified for what they're teaching. These are people who might have good intentions, but they don't have the training or knowledge to properly educate children. And 41,920 teaching positions are sitting completely empty. No teacher at all. Why are teachers leaving? Because they can't take it anymore. They're dealing with violent students, impossible working conditions, and a system that doesn't support them. They're spending their own money on basic supplies while being blamed for problems they didn't create and can't solve. 74% of school districts had trouble filling their teaching positions this year. 3 out of every 4 districts can't find enough qualified teachers. And the teachers who are staying, many of them are just counting the days until they can leave too. This isn't just about having fewer teachers. This is about the complete breakdown of the teaching profession. The people who are supposed to shape our children's minds are fleeing the profession as fast as they can. And who can blame them? But here's where the story gets really shocking. Here's where you'll see just how deep this crisis really goes. Because while our children are failing, while teachers are fleeing, while violence is exploding in our schools, the people in charge have been stealing money that was supposed to help. Are you ready for this number? $600 billion. That's how much money has been stolen from public schools over the past decade. Not lost, not misplaced, stolen. From 2008 to 2018, state governments deliberately chose not to fund public education at the levels they had before. Even as their economies recovered, even as they had more money than ever, they chose to take $598 billion away from schools. That's money that should have gone to hiring teachers, buying books, fixing broken buildings, and keeping children safe. In 2018 alone, schools lost $88 billion compared to what they should have received. $88 billion in 1 year. Some states stole nearly $5,000 per student. 15 states took more than $2,000 per student away from education. But it gets worse. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, the federal government is withholding $7 billion in education funding. $7 billion that was supposed to go to schools for English learners, after-school programs, and teacher training. Money that could help fix this crisis. And they're just sitting on it. Meanwhile, schools are so desperate for money that teachers are spending their own paychecks on basic supplies like pencils and paper. Buildings are falling apart. Class sizes are getting bigger and bigger. And the people who made these decisions, they send their own children to private schools. This isn't incompetence. This isn't an accident. This is a deliberate choice to destroy public education while pretending to care about children. The result of all this? Families are running away from public schools as fast as they can. 1 million children have left public schools since the pandemic began. 1 million. That's like every single student in the entire state of Montana just disappearing from public education. Some cities have lost a third of their students. Rochester, New York went from having 34 schools to closing 11 of them in a single year because so many families fled the system. These weren't failing schools that nobody cared about. Some of them were beloved community institutions that had been serving families for generations. I want you to imagine what it's like for a parent to walk into their child's school for the last time, to see teachers crying as they say goodbye to students they've taught for years, to watch children who don't understand why their school is closing, why their friends are being scattered to different buildings across the city. One parent, Janice Kapoor, fought desperately to keep her daughter's school open. She organized meetings, spoke at school board hearings, did everything she could, but the system didn't care. They closed the school anyway, and now her kindergartner has to go to a different school that's much harder for the family to reach. This is happening in communities across America. Schools that were the heart of neighborhoods are being shut down. Children are being forced into overcrowded buildings with overwhelmed teachers, and families who can afford it are pulling their children out entirely. Where are these children going? Some to private schools, some to homeschooling. Some are just disappearing from education entirely, and the children who are left behind, they're stuck in a system that gets worse every single day. But here's the secret that the education establishment doesn't want you to know. Here's the truth they're desperately trying to hide. This crisis isn't happening by accident. It's not the result of the pandemic, or lack of funding, or difficult students. Those are just excuses. The truth is that the people running our education system have completely different priorities than educating children. They care more about protecting their own jobs than fixing the problems. They care more about political correctness than teaching kids to read. They care more about covering up failures than admitting mistakes. When test scores plummet, they change the tests to make them easier. When students can't read, they lower the standards for graduation. When violence explodes in schools, they stop reporting it or find ways to reclassify it as something less serious. They've created a system where failure is rewarded and success is punished, where teachers who try to maintain discipline are accused of being unfair, where parents who demand better education for their children are labeled as troublemakers. And the most shocking part? Many of the people making these decisions send their own children to private schools. They know the public system is broken. They know it's failing children. But instead of fixing it, they just make sure their own kids don't have to suffer through it. This is why 77% of students graduate from high school without being proficient in basic subjects. This is why 1 million functionally illiterate students get diplomas every year. Students who can't read, can't write, can't do basic math, but get handed a piece of paper that says they're educated. These children are being set up for failure in life. They're being condemned to poverty, to dead-end jobs, to a future where they can't compete in a modern economy. And the people responsible for this? They sleep well at night in their comfortable homes, sending their own children to schools that actually work. So what does all this mean? What's the real cost of this crisis? It means we're creating a generation of children who can't think, can't read, can't function in society. Children who will grow up to be adults who can't get good jobs, can't support their families, can't participate in democracy in any meaningful way. It means we're destroying the foundation of our entire society. Because a country that can't educate its children is a country that has no future. We're not just failing individual students. We're failing as a nation. The research is clear. Children whose schools close or fail have lower graduation rates, lower college completion rates, and lower lifetime earnings. We're not just ruining their education. We're ruining their entire lives. And it's not just the children who suffer. When schools fail, entire communities collapse. Property values plummet, businesses leave, crime increases. The social fabric that holds neighborhoods together just falls apart. But here's what makes me angriest of all. This didn't have to happen. Other countries educate their children successfully. Other states and districts in America prove that it can be done. The knowledge exists. The resources exist. What's missing is the will to actually do what's necessary. Instead, we get excuses. We get blame shifting. We get politicians who promise change during election season and then do nothing once they're in office. We get administrators who care more about their pensions than the children they're supposed to serve. The children sitting in failing schools today didn't choose this. They didn't ask to be born into a system that doesn't care about them. They deserve better. They deserve schools that actually teach them. They deserve teachers who are qualified and supported. They deserve to be safe. They deserve a real education that prepares them for life. But they're not going to get it unless we demand it, unless we stop accepting excuses and start demanding results, unless we hold the people responsible for this crisis accountable for what they've done. The shocking secrets I've shared with you today aren't really secrets at all. The information is all there, in government reports and research studies. The real secret is that most people don't want to face how bad things really are. It's easier to pretend everything is fine than to confront the truth. But our children can't afford for us to look away anymore. They need us to see what's really happening. They need us to care enough to fight for them. Because if we don't, who will? The future of our country depends on what we do next. The question is, are we going to keep letting this happen, or are we finally going to do something about it? Thanks for watching and subscribe for more.